part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
Welcome to another Reg Iron Road podcast here on the Press Play Podcast Network, powered by MGM Northfield Park. Northfield Park is your home for live and simulcast racing. Catch the excitement of live harness racing Monday, Wednesday, Saturday, and Sunday evening. Post time is 6 p.m. Weekly Sunday handicapping contest featuring Saratoga. Top prize there, $500 each week. Registration begins at 11 a.m. Open early every day for simulcast action. Free admission and free parking every day at Northfield Park. And Michael Regai, we finally got a decision, I think, on Deshaun Watson, right? I mean, this is what we were waiting for, find out how many games he was going to be suspended by Judge Sue Robinson. And she handed down a 6-game suspension, but there's a loophole in this with the collective bargaining agreement, isn't there, Mike?
Good to be with you, Roadman, as always. And, yeah. There's a loophole, all right. And I think by Thursday, which is when the NFL has deadline-wise to appeal this, there's your loophole, Kenny. And you're going to get that appeal from the NFL, which means it goes to Roger Goodell. And there's so many things that between the NFL and the NFL Players Union agreeing on, this type of arbitration on these things, and in this case, a retired federal judge. So, Kenny, you mean to tell me the first time that, again, you are this retired federal judge, now the first decision she makes, you, the NFL, are going to call foul, 15-yard holding penalty, and you're going to right away appeal this and do what you want anyway. So then why are we going through these innocuous preliminaries? For what? For what?
I'm with you, Reg. They've got till 9 a.m. Thursday morning. We're taping this on a Tuesday night. Roger Goodell and the NFL supposedly wanted an indefinite suspension.
Yep.
The other side of that, Deshaun Watson and the NFLPA felt they didn't do anything wrong. They thought it should have been 0. She gave them time to try and settle it themselves. Supposedly, the NFL came down to 12, and Deshaun Watson and his people were going to go 4 to 6, but they still couldn't figure it out. So she ruled on this, and really, she ruled that everything that the NFL put forth as to the violations of the personal conduct policy, she ruled that, yes, he violated 3 of those in your personal conduct policy. But after sounding like she was going to bring the hammer down and reading her, statement, she then said, well, I am not one to set a precedent, basically. The previous situations like this were a 6-game suspension. So that's what I'm going with. 6 games, because that's what the previous incidents involving a situation like this, paid out as far as a penalty. Well, and so she says it's 6 games, and Deshaun Watson and his people say, hey, we're not going to challenge her. We're not going to appeal it. Whatever she rules on, we're fine with that. That's what we're going to do. But the NFL, at least at the time of this taping of the podcast, they haven't decided yet, but I think you and I both agree that they're probably going to appeal this and try and add more to it, whether it's games and a fine only, games only, something's going to happen.
And Kenny, I think it's noteworthy for us to point out to our podcast listeners that the initial CBA, that collective bargaining agreement that was agreed upon by both the NFL and the Players Union, states and defines that sexual assault with force is a minimum 6-game suspension. All right. So That's there. That's in. So then if you look at that, then say just with that in mind and that as your stepping stone, then Sue L. Robinson went by the letter of the law, did she not? 6 games.
Right.
Is what she came down with. Again, That is how it's stated in the collective bargaining agreement, NFL and NFLPA. Sexual assault with force, 6 games. I really believe, Kenny, that the NFL expected her to have a lengthier suspension, and I think a pretty hefty fine with it, don't you?
Yes, absolutely.
She didn't do that.
No.
She went by the letter of the law, pretty much. And
even though she agreed with the NFL that they proved the case, right?
Correct.
That he violated these 3 areas of the personal conduct policy.
Right.
She felt she couldn't give more than 6 games because of the past history in situations like this. And the NFL wanted her to set a precedent. Instead, she followed the precedent that had been previously set as the way I look at this.
Yeah. Well, but I believe, again, the NFL, I think they wanted a year-long suspension and a fine to go with it. And they knew they weren't going to receive that. But, Kenny, I do think that they are not comfortable at all with 6 and want this to be, lengthier than that and really, I guess, set a precedent in this type of indiscretion going forward.
They're also, if they appeal this and increase the suspension and add a fine, they're also setting a precedent that what good is she really if she rules on this and we overrule her, even though we agreed to have her as the Switzerland in this case, right? The arbitrator in the middle, neutral to both sides, basing it on the facts that were given to her and, everything she has, from her experience, but it's not good enough. So that's the debate I think Roger Goodell and the NFL and the owners have right now, right? Mm-hmm. Do we really want to, in her first ruling, do we really want to, overrule her and make it look like she really is useless in all of this, right? And, do what we did in the past where we're judge, jury, and executioner ourselves. And that's what Roger Goodell can do. Dan Lust was on with us, a sports attorney, said, look, they're going to appeal. You know why? Because they get to do the appeal and rule on the appeal. So they're going to win.
Sure.
But if they do appeal it and add on to it, then there's the possibility of Deshaun Watson and the NFLPA taking it to a federal court and dragging this out more. And that's the debate. Does the league, the owners, the commissioner, do they want this to continue to be front page news every day as opposed to the 2022 NFL season? So
getting closer and closer to the season. And let's say they take it up to 10, Kenny. Okay. And with the fine, don't you think that changes everything for the Watson camp now? Yeah. Where they said we're not going to appeal this fine, but now the judgment was laid down. So now if the NFL comes back and wants this kicked up and makes a decision that they're going to do that, I think then, as you said, now you're going to get. They have to then. The Watson camp would have to now appeal that. They're not just going to accept that. And so now you got the emphasis being taken off the 2022 season, which is, by the way, about a month from beginning. We got the preseason starting Thursday night in Canton, the Hall of Fame Stadium.
Tom Benson, Hall of Fame
Tom
Stadium.
Benson Stadium. So I don't know. To me, all of this continues to do is take the accent off the plane of the 22 season. And I just can't see how that is something into the best benefit of the National Football League.
Reg, here's the thing. Watson and the NFLPA said they would not appeal her ruling.
Right.
They said nothing about appealing Roger Goodell's ruling if he adds games to the suspension and a fine. So that's where I think you're right. They would then go and appeal that or take it to a federal court.
Sure.
And this thing, who knows how long that could take to resolve it? And do you want that every time the Browns play? What are you going to hear? Well, Jacoby, or if he appeals it, Michael, and it goes to a federal court, does that mean he's not suspended because it's under appeal and he can play until the ruling comes down? So
well, that's right too. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yes, they want more games, but the negatives are, do you want to overrule the judge you hired? And do you want to set a precedent the first time out, right, with that judge?
Yeah.
And do you want the negative publicity to continue to be out there? But then they're thinking, well, if we don't, we're hearing all the blowback about how it's not a long enough suspension and they didn't fine him. And so the PR there is bad too. So they're kind of weighing, okay, what's worse for us? Yeah. Overruling the judge, right? And adding more games and pleasing the people that are pissed off that it wasn't a longer suspension, or the other, situation there where you just, you know what, let those people be mad. We'll accept the 6 games and we'll just move forward, and something else in the news cycle will happen soon and overtake us. Yeah.
Don't you think, Kenny, that when Sue L. Robinson made her 6-game decision, I think it was generally accepted okay by Cleveland Browns fans and the city of Cleveland, but the rest of the free world and the National Football League. And how about, Ken, a couple of owners, namely Robert Kraft of New England and, the guy that owns the Miami Dolphins, Kenny, and he's now, it looks like he's under lock and key for a while, right?
Right.
Stephen Ross, after, they just had their first rounder in 23, their third rounder in 24, taken away for them for violating, I've got my, my quotes
air
out,
quotes,
violating the integrity of the game.
Yeah, that clause.
He just got that taken away from him, right?
$1 million or something?
Well, I think you know what really got him, I think, is when it came out that he was trying to tamper with Brady, getting Brady and Sean Payton. To be the quarterback and head coach of his football team. Now, tamper. When he did that, now, you know what, man? You probably aren't going to come away from this one clean. But Ken, I'm left thinking, and there's so many things, right, that go into this, but do you think that Sue L. Robinson initially had a longer suspension in mind? And the reason I say that, and then though, and backed it off to 6, to avoid appeals by each side.
She tried to let them figure it out. She gave them opportunities to decide the punishment, and they failed to do so. So she's looking at this. All right, it's in her eyes, even though he was, for a lack of a better term, found guilty on those 3 personal conduct policies, right? Even though he was found guilty there, in her eyes, he didn't do enough in her eyes to warrant an indefinite suspension. Okay. So she wasn't going to give that no matter what. That the NFL wasn't going to get that. But she also felt that he did enough wrong, right?
Oh, yeah.
Committed, these things to where he doesn't deserve 0 games either.
Right.
So what's the number? And instead of setting the number herself, she went back to the previous, situations along these lines and go back to Ben Roethlisberger. It was 6 and then it reduced to 4.
Right.
And so that's what the number was, 6. So that's what she came up with. And that's what she turned in because the 2 sides couldn't come together on an agreement.
Mm-hmm. I think there's a lot of heat on Roger Goodell now from the owners.
Yeah.
And those that, right, every day.
And Robert Kraft should not be saying anything about this topic.
That's what I just said. Robert Kraft shouldn't. I don't even see Stephen Ross saying anything about things, given all the hot water he's been in. And those are the two guys that open their mouth about this.
Right. And Robert Kraft got off on a technicality when there was a prostitution ring being exposed somewhere down in Florida. And because of the illegal way they gathered the video,
right?
He wasn't charged,
right?
And yet he's coming out and speaking about this. He should just shut his mouth and let other owners maybe speak, or let Roger Goodell speak. Yes, you would think so.
Right.
Yeah.
But listen, Roger Goodell is, I bet you his phone is just blowing up now. And he is in and I think this is what he wanted to avoid, Kenny, and being in this tough spot. But here he is. He's going to be in it, because I would be shocked if by Thursday morning the NFL hasn't appealed this. Shocked.
Do you think there's still a chance that maybe they reach out to each other and look, 6 isn't enough. Let's go 8 and we'll settle this. No fine. Let's go 8, half the season. This is over and done with, and we move on. Do you think maybe there's...
You mean through appeal? Now through appeal?
Well, through appeal, or reaching out to the NFLPA saying, look, we can appeal this, but if we want to avoid, we'll appeal it. Let's say 8 games. You guys don't appeal that. We settle it. It's 8 games and move on. Now the NFLPA may say, no, we're not. Sorry.
I think they would at this
6.
point. Yep.
Yeah, she ruled 6. That's what we're going with. And if you want to appeal that, increase it, then we'll see you in federal court.
I think so.
Yeah.
To answer your question, I think so. I can't see the NFLPA and the Players Union now agreeing to any more than Sue L. Robinson laid out. So to them, 6 games, I think it, pretty obvious that, they felt that, again, knowing you're going to get something. I think they were best case scenario. What, 4? You think 4 for Watson and the Browns would have been the best case? I do. 4.
Yeah.
Come on. 4. It wasn't going to be none or 1,
right.
2. It was going to be 4 best case. So I think it's 6 for the player union purposes. Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's roll. Oh, good. All right. We'll do that. No fine. And have him back in the football field in week 7. Now that could all change.
Right. All right, let's do this, Reg. Let's get a break in right now. We'll come back. We'll pick up our conversation here, give some thoughts on how this affects the Browns. If it is only 6, it's a win-win for the Browns, but not for the NFL. But if the NFL drags it, we got so much more to get to. And a shout out to our esteemed producer, Jordan Powell. Make sure everything gets out there for all of you to listen in the podcatosphere. So we appreciate his work here on the Reg I and Rhoda podcast on the Press Play Podcast Network. Back with more right after this. Hey, the Roadman, Kenny Rhoda here for Northfield Park. Northfield Park is your home for live and simulcast racing. Catch the excitement of live harness racing Monday, Wednesday, Saturday, and Sunday evening. Post time is 6 p.m. Weekly Sunday handicapping contest features Saratoga. The top prize there, $500 each week. Registration begins at 11 a.m., so get there early. In fact, they're open early every day for simulcast action. Free admission, free parking every day at Northfield Park.
What's good, everybody? My name is Taylor Vanderbilt, and I'm the host of the 440 College Basketball Podcast here on the Press Play Podcast Network. On the 440, we talk about literally everything college basketball related. It could be women's, it could be men's, it could be recruiting, it could be the tournament. It does not matter. We cover it all. So check it out. Again, it's the 440 College Basketball Podcast here on the Press Play Podcast Network.
Looking for new insights on the Cleveland sports scene with a unique side of Cleveland sports history? Then you found the perfect podcast. I'm John Sable.
And I'm Scott Sable, and we're hosts of the Sable Brothers on the Baseline podcast, a podcast about Cleveland sports, but not your typical podcast about the land's sports teams. Join us as we embark on a journey of sharing a unique and historical side of Cleveland sports history with the help of some former Cleveland sports stars and other historical figures.
All right here on the Sable Brothers on the Baseline podcast, part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
What's up, everyone? Chase Smith here, host of the Chase Smith Podcast, and my podcast reflects who I am. my hobbies, my interests, my passions, my curiosities, my careers, my questions, and my family. I'll spend time talking about all types of sports, movies, TV shows, trending news stories, and other cultural events, and even faith. This is who I am, and I hope I can get to know you as well. Join me on the Chase Smith Podcast, and let's have some thought-provoking conversations, only on the Press Play Podcast Network.
For the Dennis Maniloff Show, I'll tap into my 40-plus years of following Cleveland sports and 30-plus years of writing and talking about them, so as to bring you informed opinions and analysis of your favorite players and teams. I also will monitor the national sports scene and, when warranted, step out of the toy department and into the real world. And I'll always be on the lookout for special guests. By all means, join us.
Hey everyone, this is Mike Voorhees.
And I'm Brian Shaw. No, not the pitcher. We're the Guardians of the Land MLB podcast, formerly a Swing and a Tribe.
Don't have time to watch 162 games of baseball? We do. We have you covered with recaps of the games, stats, and analysis throughout the MLB season.
Subscribe now to Guardians of the Land and Press Play Pods for all your Cleveland sports analysis.
And we return here to the R&R podcast powered by MGM Northfield Park right here on the Press Play Podcast Network. And Michael, all right, let's for this podcast, let's say Goodell weighs all the options. And by Thursday morning at 9 a.m., he says, you know what? We're just going to accept this because we set this in place with the CBA. We want to use Sue Robinson moving forward. It would not look good if we overruled her on her first decision. So we'll accept the 6. Win for the Browns,
yes.
Win for Deshaun Watson, maybe a loss for the league and the PR for right now. But 6 games with Jacoby Brissett as your quarterback. Looking at the schedule, that's Panthers, Jets, Steelers, Falcons, Chargers, Patriots. 3-3 in those 6 games with Jacoby Brissett, meaning coming back against the Baltimore Ravens, possibly on October 23rd, the first of 11 games that Deshaun Watson would get to play in, Michael. If I'm the Browns, I'd be happy with the 6-game suspension and a 3-3 record, getting him back for that game at Baltimore. What about you?
Absolutely. You got to sign up for that right now.
Yeah.
3-3. I mean, everybody's thinking that, well, maybe I could go 3-1 in those first 4. Okay. Possibly, but they also could lose to both the Patriots and the Chargers too,
right.
Which again, if you're asking me right now with Brissett and, I like Jacoby as a backup, but now you're talking about, how it is with backups, Kenny, again, a game or 2, right? But the more they play, right? You and I've talked about this to all the years we've been together. That's great, but the more they play, they're going to show you why they're a backup in the NFL. So 6, and again, I would not favor them against either the Patriots or the Chargers, assuming, both those teams.
Both are at home.
Had their guys. Both are at home, or is one of them at home?
No, both of them are in Cleveland.
Are they?
LA Chargers in Cleveland, October 9th, and the Patriots, October 16th.
That helps. That helps.
You would think, right?
Yeah. So maybe they get one of those. I'd still be surprised if they got them both.
Right.
If both those teams are doing the things that we expect them and how they're going to play this year. But sure, I mean, so let's even add those in. 3-3. If that you'd have to be ecstatic over that, Kenny. And even quite honestly, 2-4 doesn't bury you. Doesn't bury you,
but it makes it a little tougher.
It makes it tougher, because you need to probably get, you and I've talked 10-7, right? You want to be 10-7 to get in the playoffs. So if you're 2-4, now you got to go 8-3 in the last 11.
Right.
And sure, I completely get that. Doesn't bury you by letter of the law, but makes it tough. 3-3 certainly can live with that, and anything other than that. And if they did better than 3-3, if he misses 6 games, wow, that's extraordinary. So I think it's something that the Browns feel like they can still do business with if it stays at 6. Now 8.
Yeah, then
don't know
you're
if they'd
looking
appeal it if they go back. But you know what? I take that back. I just said I do think they would. if the NFL is going to appeal this and they kick it up to 8, I don't know. I know it just drags it out more and keeps it going in a direction nobody wants. But you wonder at this point now if would the Browns say, wait a minute, yeah, 6 we're good with, 8 we're not. I think it would be 8 we're not.
Now, here's something we failed to mention in the first segment with Judge Sue Robinson. In handing down the 6-game suspension, she also stated that he must receive all massages within the Cleveland Browns organization.
How about that?
Which leads you to believe that she doesn't believe he's remorseful.
That's right.
And is a changed person just yet. She's putting that in there, and not to have any trouble with the law as another stipulation, right?
Yeah. Well, Kenny, I'm going to say this too. I took a little bit of umbrage today when this, I don't know how you felt about this cockamamie statement came out from D and Jimmy Haslam. We know Deshaun is remorseful. What? I've never heard that word come or anything close to it come out of his mouth. What the hell are they talking about? We know Deshaun is remorseful. He never said that. Not once. Not even close to it.
Reg, they have stayed so far away from this since they made the trade. Remember when they had the press conference?
Yep.
They weren't there in person to sit next to Deshaun Watson for the optic that, I think purposely they didn't want anybody to see them sitting next to this guy that's got, 24, 25 civil cases against him for sexual misconduct. So they just, something came up or they were out of the country or out of the state. So they had to do it by Zoom. And then they don't face the cameras.
Nope.
Yesterday, when this is announced, they just released that statement.
Yep.
And the statement completely contradicts what Judge Sue Robinson felt, because she felt he was not remorseful. And yet
that's right.
Jimmy and Dee said he was remorseful. This organization, we had Daryl Ryder on the Kenny and JT show today on WHBC. And Daryl, said he took a lot of flack for it too, because he wrote an article saying the Browns mishandled yesterday completely by not having somebody other than Kevin Stefanski answering questions about this.
Yep.
The owners releasing only a statement and Andrew Berry nowhere to be found. And then Stefanski comes out and tries to answer these questions by saying, look, I haven't even read the statement from her yet, so I can't really answer.
How about that?
And that's how you handle this?
That man has to stand there and deal with all of the questions. That should not be your head football coach. Yes, of course, you want to have him express his feelings? Sure. But to be the guy for the entire organization that's got to stand out there and try to, if I were him, and I hope he did, I would have went right into the Haslams and said, you know what? This is crap. And what you need to do for me, how about you tear up my contract and let's sign a whole new one, since you seem to want to put me out on Front Street and be the one to deal with this. He should not be the one to have to answer these questions and make these kind of statements for the organization. That is such crap, Kenny.
And Michael, with all the things that they've screwed up since they've owned the team for 10 years, you think they'd be better prepared for this because they've been through it how many times with Pilot Flying J and the Cleveland Browns, and yet they still mishandled the PR part of it yesterday.
That's right. It evidently is just part of who they are and what they do, and they have no earthly idea how to get themselves into a favorable situation during, as you just said, PR problems. They have no idea. They haven't since they bought this football team, and nothing seems to change.
Yeah. So we'll see after everything comes down. Supposedly, Daryl told us this today. Once the NFL makes their decision, if they appeal, if they don't appeal, that Jimmy Haslam, D. Haslam, Andrew Berry, and Deshaun Watson, once everything is finalized, that they will hold a press conference, allegedly, supposedly. We'll see. they better, I'll say it that way, they better all together hold a press conference when
and Kevin
this
Stefanski doesn't need to be there with you.
And not in the room, not in the building, not in the city if he doesn't want to be there.
Because he's already covered your butts big time. You don't need to have him there, and you shouldn't have him there. You've already put him out in a situation he never should be in.
He should be figuring out and worrying about, all right, 6 games. We got to split up the snaps.
Right.
What does Jacoby do well? What does Deshaun do well? Let's get guys at the wide receiver position. 3 of them are hurt, by the way, didn't practice today. And the running back position, working with both quarterbacks so we can be on the same page. So whoever is quarterbacking in week 1, more than likely Jacoby Brissett, we're ready to go. That's what his focus should be on, not answering 100%. Organizational questions about Deshaun Watson.
There you go. Yeah, he should have never had to do that. Well, I don't know. Was it today? Earlier today. Should never have Tuesday, Monday. Should never had to do it. Should never been put in that position. This man, he's your head football coach, for God's sakes.
Yeah.
I mean,
Here's what should have
people,
happened.
you upper management people and the ownership group, shame on all of you. And you know how much I like Andrew Berry, Kenny.
Yeah,
I do. But you know what? Andrew's a part of this too. Where is he right now? What is he doing yesterday and today?
No idea.
And again, I like Andrew Berry a lot, but he dropped the ball too. He's supposed to be the one delivering this. If the owners, then, Andrew, it's on you. It's your job. You're the general manager of this football team.
Daryl and I talked about it, and Daryl was right. He said something along the lines of Andrew Berry or the owners, right, should have been out there saying, hey, we're going to speak here first. Then you can talk to Kevin about football,
That's
issues.
Right, 100%.
Here's what we have to say about this right now. Whatever it is, yada yada yada. Okay, coach hasn't even read the article, so he knows nothing about this other than what the 6 games is. Now, if you want to ask him football questions, go ahead. That's how it should have been handled from a PR standpoint.
Anything but. Yeah, exactly the opposite. Exactly the opposite of that, Kenny.
Yeah.
Terrible. Just terrible.
So, but that's the Haslam way, right? Jimmy didn't go to jail. Other people did it in Pilot Flying J. He knew nothing about the fraud that was going on with the rebates or whatever it was. And he came out clean as a whistle, right? And, is still owning the team. And I think they still own Pilot Flying J, or they're selling it to Warren Buffett or I don't know what the heck it is, but that's the way they do things. So
I'll tell you,
by the way, great article by Dave DiNatale, Cleveland.com, breaking down the first 10 years of the Haslam regime. If you haven't read it, people out there, go check it out at Cleveland. WKYC.com. Dave DiNatale, the article really, and takes it right up to this with the Deshaun Watson situation, the first 10 years, because they bought him in 2012.
Yeah, well, I have such little regard for that ownership group. Kenny, I tell you, I love the city of Cleveland. I love Cleveland Browns fans, and that's why I want the Browns to win and be successful. But if it weren't for those things, Kenny, if it just was for that ownership group, I wouldn't give a damn if they ever won a football game.
Yeah,
because that's how I think ill-managed and ill-conceived by this ownership group, not just with this situation, for their entire ownership. It's not been good, man. It's not been good. I don't have a whole lot of regard for them left any longer.
And, Reg, the other thing in all of this is Deshaun Watson has got pressure on him in 3 different ways, Michael. He's got pressure on him to change his lifestyle off the field because I'll give you my opinion. A little freaky deaky out there, right? Something that trips his trigger, obviously isn't right.
So he needs to clean. You're right.
He's got to clean his act up. For the betterment
of his football career, he better think about making some changes
because he won't have a football career if he doesn't.
Right.
Okay.
And so you got somebody in his camp has got to make him understand that.
Right. 66.
Seems to me he's an intelligent young man, but somebody's got to make him understand. Hey, I know. One would think that he's a man of intelligence.
Right.
Some of the positions he's put himself in, it doesn't
Not very
look
smart.
that way. No. But regardless, his management team, his lawyers, his family, his friends, they all got to let him know, Deshaun, you got to pull back. You got to stop this. You're not going to have an NFL career if you don't.
Right. And so off the field, he's got to straighten up. On the field, the pressure's there. However many games he's suspended to come back in and win right away because they're a playoff team in everybody's eyes, right? And he's got to win over the locker room too. Yep. So there's pressure in three different ways that he has to deal with when the season. It has officially started. They're in training camp. Preseason games are just around the corner that he can practice and play in. And the ruling on it is if it's 6 games, he has to sit out the first 3 weeks and stay away from training camp. Then the next 3 weeks of the 6-game suspension, he can practice, but he can't be there on game day. And then he'll be able to play in game 7 against the Ravens if it's only a 6-game suspension.
That's right.
More chapters to be written when we thought maybe this was going to be over, right? It's not.
No.
More chapters to be written on this Deshaun Watson situation. But we wanted to jump on here tonight and give you at least our initial thoughts on everything. And now it's up. The ball, as they say, is in the court or in the hands of Roger Goodell and the NFL. What are they going to do with it?
And the NFL owners, because they've got a lot now in the next, they've got till Thursday morning, right, Kenny? So we're looking at about 36 hours. Because I think the owners are going to be and it's not going to go the Browns' way. So we'll see how Roger Goodell, because as you know, Kenny, and he got that job, he's got to serve those owners, baby, those 32, right? Now, take one away because, the Browns aren't going to be involved in that. But I bet you some of them owners are going to be all on him, Kenny, to appeal this to the utmost.
Yeah. And you know why? Because of the $230 million guaranteed that Jimmy Haslam and the Browns gave Deshaun Watson on top of all this. So,
good point. We've said this before, but I'm glad you brought that up. Every one of those owners wasn't happy about that at all.
Yep.
Because all that did is the ones with quarterbacks made them ready to pay the pipers, what that did.
Absolutely. All right, Reg, let's leave this at this point right here on this R&R podcast. And then when we get a decision from Roger Goodell, the NFL and the NFLPA and Deshaun Watson and all that, we'll put another one of these together and give everybody our reaction to that. And hopefully we can start talking about football on the field as opposed to me having to get lawyers on my radio show and try and be Denny Crane, deciphering all the verbiage that was put in that release by Sue Robinson. We want to talk X's and O's, fly patterns, post patterns, running game, right? We want to talk that kind of football
all
as
that
opposed
football.
to
Got to tell you, though, you're very good at all that other stuff you just mentioned.
I watched a lot of Boston Legal.
It was Boston Legal.
Denny
Crane.
Yeah. It's my idol right there. Denny Crane.
It's a good idol to have.
Yeah,
good dude.
Right there.
Really liked
never
what he
lost
did.
the case, Denny Crane.
No, he never
lost
did.
the case.
No, he certainly never did. So if you picked up good stuff from him, then you're aces, man.
Bill Shatner and
William
James
Shatner. Spader,
man. That was a hell of a show.
Yeah,
love
both of them. They were.
Candace Bergen too. She was awesome in that show.
But Shatner and Spader, remember at the last, they would sit there, smoke big stogies, and drink Jack Daniels.
I think that's what we need to start doing for this podcast. Yeah, we'll start doing video podcasts. You and I on a balcony somewhere.
So you ready to pick me up off the ground at the end of each one if I drink too much Jack Daniels?
We'll rotate, Reg. We'll go to your place one time and do it. And I got I've got the back patio here that we can sit out, and then you can crash here if you need to. I'll crash at your place.
Oh, I definitely got to. I'm telling you, man, about a couple of a sip and a half of Jack. I'm not getting in no car, Kenny.
No way. No chance.
Yeah.
Not these days.
That's right,
man.
sir.
No way.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep.
A little Cabo Wabo tequila, and that's it. I'm on the couch. Give me the recliner, whatever it takes, man.
Smart. Yeah. We're getting smart in our old age, aren't we?
Yeah. Well, we're trying. Yeah, trying. We are. That's one good thing that comes with the age, right, Reg? You're a little bit more knowledgeable.
Sure hope so. Hope so. Buddy.
All right, Reg, this is always fun. We'll see what happens, and we'll get back here on the Press Play Podcast Network with another podcast once we know for sure what the situation is with Deshaun Watson. At least we have a starting point, tonight.
And look forward to our next venture. Talk to you then.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks again to our producer, Jordan Powell. Outstanding job getting this out to everybody. And thanks to our title sponsor, MGM Northfield Park. Free admission and free parking every day at Northfield Park. They're open early every day for simulcast action. Go check them out and have a great time. We'll talk to you all next time here on the R&R Podcast.